My sister's obsession became my weapon. I made her watch her soulmate fall for me, and the family finally saw the truth. There's a specific moment when you realize that the person everyone calls passionate is actually just obsessed. And that moment for me came when I found my sister's shrine. Not a shrine in the religious sense, a shrine to a man who barely knew she existed. My name is Lily Harper, and for 3 years, I watched my sister Madison destroy herself over Derek Sullivan, a man she met exactly twice, spoke to for maybe 15 minutes total, and decided was her soulmate. The shrine was in her closet. I found it by accident when I was looking for a sweater I'd lent her months ago. Behind the neatly organized designer clothes, there was a wall, and on that wall, photos of Derek. Hundreds of them. Screenshots from his LinkedIn, pictures clearly taken from a distance, him leaving his office building in downtown Boston, him at a coffee shop, him jogging through Boston Common, and notes. God, the notes. Written in Madison's perfect handwriting. Derek smiled at the barista today. He has such a kind soul. Saw Derek with a woman, probably just a colleague. He wouldn't betray our connection. 3 years since we met, our anniversary. The human mind is fascinating in its ability to create entire realities. Madison had built a relationship, a love story, a destiny, all in her head, and nobody had stopped her. I took a photo of the shrine, not for revenge, not yet, but because some part of me knew I'd need evidence someday. Evidence that this wasn't love. This was obsession. This was illness. But when I tried to tell my parents, when I showed them the photo, my mother's response was, "Lily, everyone processes love differently. Madison is just passionate. You wouldn't understand because you've never felt that deeply." And there it was, the narrative that had defined my entire relationship with my sister. Madison felt things deeply. Madison was passionate. Madison was special. And I was just Lily. Practical, boring, incapable of understanding real emotions. The irony was that I understood perfectly. I understood that what Madison felt wasn't love. It was possession. It was the need to control a narrative where she was the romantic heroine and Derek was her destined prince, whether he wanted the role or not. Derek Sullivan. I'd heard his name so many times it had lost meaning. Madison talked about him constantly. Derek would love this restaurant. Derek's favorite color is blue. Derek and I are meant to be together. I can feel it in my soul. The fact that Derek had explicitly told Madison he wasn't interested, multiple times, according to their one mutual friend, didn't matter. In Madison's reality, he was just afraid of how intense our connection is. Obsession doesn't need reciprocation. It feeds on fantasy. And the less the object of obsession responds, the more elaborate the fantasy becomes. The worst part wasn't Madison's obsession. It was how my family enabled it. When Madison got fired from her job for inappropriate workplace behavior, translation, showing up at Derek's office unannounced, sending excessive emails, making his colleagues uncomfortable, my parents helped her sue for wrongful termination. When Derek blocked Madison on all social media, my mother said, "He's just overwhelmed by his feelings. Give him space, sweetie." When Madison started driving past Derek's apartment in Cambridge at odd hours, my father said, "She's just making sure he's safe. That's what people in love do." No, that's what stalkers do. But I was the crazy one for pointing it out. I was jealous of Madison's capacity for deep emotion. I was bitter because nobody had ever loved me that intensely. And there it was. The irony was that I understood perfectly. I understood that what Madison felt wasn't love. It was possession. It was the need to control a narrative where she was the romantic heroine and Derek was her destined prince, whether he wanted the role or not. Derek Sullivan. I'd heard his name so many times it had lost meaning. Madison talked about him constantly. Derek would love this restaurant. Derek's favorite color is blue. Derek and I are meant to be together. I can feel it in my soul. The fact that Derek had explicitly told Madison he wasn't interested, multiple times, according to their one mutual friend, didn't matter. In Madison's reality, he was just afraid of how intense our connection is. Obsession doesn't need reciprocation. It feeds on fantasy. And the less the object of obsession responds, the more elaborate the fantasy becomes. The worst part wasn't Madison's obsession. It was how my family enabled it. When Madison got fired from her job for inappropriate workplace behavior, translation, showing up at Derek's office unannounced, sending excessive emails, making his colleagues uncomfortable, my parents helped her sue for wrongful termination. When Derek blocked Madison on all social media, my mother said, "He's just overwhelmed by his feelings. Give him space, sweetie." When Madison started driving past Derek's apartment in Cambridge at odd hours, my father said, "She's just making sure he's safe. That's what people in love do." No, that's what stalkers do. But I was the crazy one for pointing it out. I was jealous of Madison's capacity for deep emotion. I was bitter because nobody had ever loved me that intensely. The smell of my mother's vanilla candles always brings me back to those family dinners. Madison would spend hours talking about Derek, analyzing every tiny interaction, finding meaning in coincidences, planning their future wedding. And my parents would listen, encouraging, supportive, and I would sit there, the scent of vanilla mixing with my growing nausea, wondering if I was the only sane person in the room. I met Derek Sullivan on a Tuesday in September at a marketing conference at the Boston Convention Center. I didn't know who he was. I deliberately never looked him up, never asked to see photos. I didn't want Madison's obsession to contaminate my perception of a real person. He was at the coffee station during a break, struggling with one of those industrial coffee machines that seem designed to humiliate people. Here, I reached over, pressed the right combination of buttons, coffee flowed smoothly into his cup. "You're a lifesaver," he smiled, and it was genuine, warm, the kind of smile that reaches the eyes. "I'm Derek." "Lily." I shook his hand, professional. "First time at one of these conferences?" "That obvious?" He laughed. "Yeah, my company just started sending people to these things, trying to expand our network or whatever corporate speak they're using this quarter." We talked, just talked, about the boring keynote speaker, about how conference coffee is somehow always terrible despite costing a fortune, about our jobs. He was in software development, I was in marketing. Our industries overlapped enough to make conversation easy, but not enough to be competitors. "You want to grab actual good coffee after this?" Derek asked as the break was ending. "There's a place around the corner that doesn't taste like industrial despair." I should have said no, should have asked his last name, connected the dots, run far away. But I didn't, because Derek Sullivan, the person, was nothing like Derek Sullivan, the obsession object. He was real, funny, self-deprecating. He talked about his rescue dog, his terrible apartment with the leaky faucet his landlord refused to fix, his mother's disappointment that he hadn't become a doctor. We got coffee, then dinner, then exchanged numbers. It wasn't until our third date, when he mentioned he used to work at a tech startup in Cambridge, that something clicked. "Wait," I put down my wine glass at the small Italian restaurant in the North End. "What was the company called?" "Tech Vision," he said. "Why?" My stomach dropped. Tech Vision, where Madison used to work, where she'd been fired 3 years ago. "Derek Sullivan," I said slowly. "You worked at Tech Vision 3 years ago." "Yeah." He looked confused. "How did you know that?" "I need to tell you something." My hands were shaking. "And you're probably going to want to leave, but you deserve to know." I told him everything about Madison, about her obsession, about the shrine, the stalking, the family that enabled it all, about how I'd met him completely by chance, not knowing who he was. Derek's face went through several emotions: confusion, recognition, horror, and finally, something like relief. "Madison Harper," he said quietly. "That's your sister. You remember her?" "Remember her?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Lily, your sister made my life hell for 2 years. I had to get a restraining order. I had to move apartments. I had to change my phone number 3 times. I thought she'd finally stopped when I didn't hear from her for the past year." She hadn't stopped. She'd just gotten better at hiding it. The shrine in her closet proved that. I should go. I started to stand up. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. If I had known... Wait, Derek caught my hand. Lily, you're not your sister. And honestly, these past few weeks with you they've been the first time in 3 years I felt normal, like I could date someone without looking over my shoulder. But Madison is your sister's problem, not yours. He squeezed my hand. Unless you think this is too complicated? I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Someone who saw me as a Lily, not as Madison's sister, not as the supporting character in Madison's dramatic love story. Just me. It's definitely complicated, I admitted. My family, they don't know the real Madison. They think she's just passionate. They think I'm jealous. Are you? He asked gently. Jealous? Of an obsession that's destroyed her life? I shook my head. No, I'm angry. Angry that everyone enables her. Angry that nobody sees how sick this is. Angry that I've been painted as the villain for 3 years just for telling the truth. Derek was quiet for a moment. Then, what if we showed them? Showed them what? The truth. His eyes met mine. Lily, I like you. Really like you. Not because of some fantasy or obsession, but because you're smart and funny and you actually listen when I talk about my boring job. If we're going to date, and I want to date you, your family is going to find out eventually. So why not? Why not use that? Show them what real connection looks like versus Madison's fantasy. And there it was, the seed of an idea. Not revenge exactly, but justice. A way to finally make my family see what I'd been trying to tell them for 3 years. I paused. That's actually brilliant and slightly vindictive. Is that a yes? Derek smiled. I thought about the shrine, about 3 years of being called jealous, bitter, incapable of understanding real love, about Madison's obsession being enabled while my truth was dismissed. Yes, I said. Let's do it. The next 2 months were a careful balance. Derek and I dated, genuinely dated. We weren't faking anything. The connection was real. The laughter was real. The slow, steady fall into something that felt like love was absolutely real. But we also planned. Thanksgiving, I said, one evening at Derek's apartment in Somerville, his rescue dog Benny snoring on my lap. That's when we do it. Big family dinner. Everyone will be there. You sure? Derek looked up from his laptop. That's pretty nuclear, Lily. It needs to be. I'd thought about this carefully. If we do it quietly, my parents will find a way to minimize it, to make it about me being dramatic. But if it's public, if it's in front of the whole family, they can't ignore it. And Madison? Madison will... I paused. Honestly, I don't know what she'll do. But Derek, she needs help. Real help. Not my parents telling her that her obsession is passion. She needs to face reality. Derek came over, sat next to me, careful not to disturb Benny. You know this might destroy your relationship with your family. What relationship? I asked bitterly. The one where they dismiss everything I say? Where Madison's feelings are always more important than truth? Where I'm the villain for pointing out that stalking isn't love? Fair point. He kissed my forehead. Okay, Thanksgiving it is. But Lily, promise me something. What? Promise me that no matter what happens, you know this is real. He gestured between us. What we have. This isn't a game or revenge. I'm falling for you. The real you. Not because of Madison or your family or any of that. Just you. And that was the moment I knew this was more than just exposing Madison. This was about claiming my own life, my own story, my own right to be loved for who I was, not who I wasn't. I promise, I said. This is real. The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving were surreal. I'd go to family dinners, my parents insisted on weekly Sunday dinners in their Brooklyn home, and watch Madison talk about Derek. I had a dream about him last night, Madison would say, pushing her food around her plate. We were at our wedding. It was beautiful. I woke up crying because it felt so real. That's beautiful, sweetie. My mother would pat her hand. Dreams are the universe's way of showing us our destiny. I'd bite my tongue, because soon, very soon, they'd see the difference between destiny and delusion. Madison had gotten worse lately, more erratic. She'd lost another job, this time at a boutique marketing firm, for attendance issues. Translation, she'd been spending her days trying to track Derek's movements. "It's not fair," she told me one Sunday, cornering me in the kitchen while I was helping with dishes. "Everyone else gets to be with their soulmate. Why is the universe keeping us apart?" "Maybe because he's not your soulmate," I said carefully. "Maybe because he's just a guy who you met twice and built a fantasy around." "You don't understand." Her eyes had that glazed quality they got when she talked about Derek. "When you meet your person, you just know. The universe aligns. Everything makes sense. Madison, he got a restraining order against you." "Because he was scared," she insisted. "Scared of how intense our connection is. People do that sometimes. They run from real love because it's overwhelming." This was the problem. In Madison's reality, every rejection was proof of love. Every boundary was a test to overcome. There was no way to reason with her because she'd rewritten reality itself. "What if," I started carefully, "what if Derek met someone else? What if he fell in love with someone?" Madison's face changed. Something dark flickered across it. "That won't happen." "But if it did?" "It won't," she said firmly, "because we're meant to be together. I've known it for 3 years, and nothing, no one will change that." I felt a chill, because in that moment, I realized Madison wasn't just delusional. She was potentially dangerous. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally, psychologically. Emma, my best friend since college, was the only person who knew the full plan. "You're sure about this?" she asked over drinks at a bar in Cambridge. "Because this is going to detonate your family." "It's already detonated," I said. "They just don't know it yet. Emma, I've spent 3 years being gaslit, being told I'm jealous, bitter, incapable of understanding real emotions. Meanwhile, Madison is literally stalking someone, and everyone calls it love." "I know," Emma squeezed my hand. "I've watched it happen, and it's been infuriating. But Lily, once you do this, there's no going back. Your parents might choose Madison over you." "Then that tells me everything I need to know," I said, "about them, about what they value, about whether I want them in my life." "And Derek? You're sure he's not just using this situation?" "He's not," I said with certainty. "We've talked about it, a lot. He's as freaked out about the Madison connection as I am. But Emma, what we have is real. It's not about her. It's about us." "Okay," Emma nodded. "Then I'm with you. Whatever happens, I'm with you." The week before Thanksgiving, Madison called me. Unusual, we usually only talked at family dinners. "Lily, can you come over? I need to talk to you." I went, curious and cautious. Her apartment in Cambridge, paid for by our parents, was immaculate as always. But I noticed something. The closet door was slightly open. The shrine was visible. "I need your help," Madison said, and she looked genuinely distressed. "I think Derek is dating someone." My heart stopped. "What makes you think that?" "I saw him," she admitted, "at a restaurant, with a woman. They looked close." She'd been following him. Still, despite the restraining order, despite everything. "Madison, you can't keep doing this." "I'm not doing anything," she snapped. "I just happened to be in the area, and I saw them. And Lily, it hurt so much, because he's supposed to be with me. We're supposed to be together." "He doesn't even know you," I said, my voice harder than I intended. "You met him twice, 3 years ago. He explicitly told you he wasn't interested. He got a restraining order. Madison, this isn't love. This is obsession." You sound like the therapist Mom made me see. Madison's eyes narrowed. She didn't understand either. Nobody understands, except me. I know Derek. I know his soul. I know we're meant to be together. And if he's in love with someone else? Madison's face went cold, genuinely cold. Then she's in the way. And things that are in the way of destiny need to be removed. That was the moment I knew we were doing the right thing, because Madison wasn't just delusional, she was escalating. And whoever Derek was dating, even if it wasn't me, was potentially in danger. Madison, you need help, real help. I need Derek, she said simply. That's all I need. Once we're together, everything will be fine. You'll see. Everyone will see. Our love story will prove everyone wrong. I left her apartment feeling sick and more determined than ever, because this wasn't just about exposing Madison anymore. This was about stopping her before she did something she couldn't take back. She threatened you, Derek said when I told him that night. Lily, maybe we should go to the police. And tell them what? That my sister is obsessed with you and vaguely threatened whoever you're dating without knowing it's me? I shook my head. They won't do anything. The restraining order already exists. But Derek, this is why we need to do this. My family needs to see how far gone she is. They need to see that this isn't romance. It's dangerous. Okay, he pulled me close. But Lily, if at any point you feel unsafe, I'll be fine, I said. Madison won't hurt me. She might hate me after this, but she won't hurt me. I hoped I was right. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and bright in Boston. I woke up in Derek's apartment, Benny already begging for his morning walk, and felt my stomach twist with anticipation and dread. You ready for this? Derek asked, handing me coffee in the mug I'd started keeping at his place, a small intimacy that felt huge. No, I admitted, but we're doing it anyway. My parents' house in Brookline was already full when we arrived at 2 p.m. Aunts, uncles, cousins, the full Harper family gathering. The smell of roasting turkey mixed with my mother's signature pumpkin pie, scents that usually meant comfort, but today felt suffocating. Madison was in the kitchen, helping my mother with last-minute preparations. She looked beautiful. She always did. Her blonde hair perfectly styled, her dress elegant. The picture of the successful, put-together older sister. The sister who had a shrine to a man she'd met twice, hidden in her closet. Lily, my mother hugged me, and you brought someone. How wonderful. Mom, Dad, everyone. I took a deep breath. This is my boyfriend, Derek Sullivan. The kitchen went silent. I watched Madison's face carefully. For a split second, just a split second, I saw recognition, shock, and then something darker. Then her face rearranged itself into confusion. Derek Sullivan? That name sounds familiar. It should, Derek said calmly. We worked together at TechVision 3 years ago. Oh, Madison's laugh was too high, too bright. That's right, I remember you. What a small world. She was good, really good. If I hadn't known the truth, hadn't seen the shrine, I might have believed her casual act. Small world indeed. Derek's arm was around my waist, steady and warm. Lily and I met at a conference 2 months ago. Had no idea she was your sister until recently. How nice. Madison's smile didn't reach her eyes. And you're dating? That's really nice. It's more than nice, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Derek is incredible. We're really happy together. Dinner was excruciating. Madison sat across from us, barely eating, her eyes constantly flicking to Derek. My mother kept trying to make conversation, oblivious to the tension. My father, I noticed, was watching Madison carefully. Maybe he was finally seeing something. So, Derek, my Uncle Tom asked, what do you do? Software development, Derek replied easily. Boring tech stuff, but it pays the bills, and I like my team. And how did you two meet? Aunt Susan asked, smiling at us. Marketing conference, I said. I helped him figure out the coffee machine. Very romantic. Laughter around the table. Except from Madison. She was gripping her fork so tightly her knuckles were white. Madison, sweetie, you're not eating, my mother noticed. Are you feeling okay? I'm fine, Madison said, but her voice was strained. Just not very hungry. After dinner, while everyone was settling in the living room for dessert, Madison cornered me in the hallway. What are you doing? She hissed. What do you mean? I kept my voice innocent. Derek, you're dating Derek, my Derek. Your Derek? I raised an eyebrow. Madison, you met him twice, 3 years ago. He's not yours. We have a connection, her voice was rising, a soul connection, and you're trying to steal him from me. You can't steal something that was never yours, I said calmly. Derek and I met organically. We fell for each other naturally. There's no stealing involved. You knew, Madison's eyes were wild now, you knew I loved him and you went after him anyway. What kind of sister does that? The kind who's tired of watching her sister destroy herself over a fantasy, I said, my voice hard. Madison, Derek doesn't love you. He never did. He got a restraining order against you. He moved apartments to get away from you. He changed his phone number 3 times. That's not love. That's fear. He's scared of our connection, Madison insisted. It's too intense. But once he remembers... Remembers what? I challenged. The 2 brief conversations you had? The fantasy you built in your head? Madison, there's nothing to remember because nothing ever happened. You're lying, she was crying now. You're jealous. You've always been jealous of me. Of my capacity to love deeply. This isn't love, I said, louder than I intended. This is obsession. This is stalking. And I'm done pretending it's anything else. The hallway wasn't as private as we thought. When we emerged, the entire family was staring. They'd heard everything. Madison? My mother's voice was uncertain. What is Lily talking about? She's making things up, Madison said desperately. She's always been jealous of me, and now she's trying to ruin my relationship with Derek. What relationship? Derek spoke up, his voice calm but firm. Madison, we don't have a relationship. We never did. We were coworkers who had maybe 2 conversations. Then you started showing up at my office, unannounced, sending me dozens of emails a day, following me. I had to get a restraining order. That's not true. Madison looked around wildly. He's lying. We have a connection, a soul connection. Tell them, Derek. Tell them how you feel about me. I don't feel anything about you, Derek said, not unkindly but honestly, except concern. Madison, what you're describing isn't love. It's obsession, and it's not healthy. Show them, I said quietly. Show us what? My father asked. I pulled out my phone, showed them the photo I'd taken months ago, the shrine, hundreds of photos of Derek, notes about their relationship, plans for their future. Sometimes the truth needs evidence, because people will deny reality until it's staring them in the face, undeniable and documented. My mother's face went pale. Madison, what is this? It's proof of my love, Madison said desperately. I keep track of Derek because I care about him, because we're meant to be together. Madison, this is stalking, my father said, his voice heavy. This is not normal behavior. You don't understand, Madison was sobbing now. None of you understand. Derek and I are soulmates. The universe brought us together. The universe didn't bring you together, I said, my voice breaking despite myself. You created a fantasy in your head and refused to let go. And for 3 years, Mom and Dad enabled it. They called it passion. They called it deep love. They told me I was jealous for pointing out the truth. That's not fair, Lily, my mother said weakly. Isn't it? I challenged. How many times did I tell you Madison needed help? Real help. How many times did you dismiss me? Tell me I was bitter? Tell me I didn't understand real emotions? Silence. I have the emails, Derek said quietly. 3 years worth, hundreds of them. I have the police reports from when Madison showed up at my apartment. I have documentation of the restraining order. I have statements from former coworkers about her behavior. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a pattern of obsessive behavior that needed to be addressed years ago. Why didn't you tell us? My father asked Derek. Because I didn't know you were Lily's family until recently, Derek replied. And honestly, I thought Madison had finally moved on when the harassment stopped a year ago. I didn't realize she'd just gotten better at hiding it. Madison collapsed into a chair, still sobbing. And for the first time, I saw my parents really look at her, not with indulgence or excuses, but with horror and concern. She needs help, I said softly. Real help, not therapy she pretends to go to, not medication she doesn't take, real, intensive help. Because this isn't just about Derek anymore. This is about Madison being unable to distinguish fantasy from reality. This was the moment where my family had to choose, enable Madison's delusion or face the uncomfortable truth. My mother sank into a chair, her face in her hands. The Thanksgiving dinner, so carefully prepared, sat forgotten in the dining room. The turkey was getting cold, the pies untouched, but none of that mattered anymore. 3 years, my father said, his voice hollow. We've been enabling this for 3 years. I tried to tell you, I said, and I hated how my voice shook. You did. He looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Remorse. And we didn't listen. We thought you were jealous, that you couldn't understand Madison's intensity. Intensity? I laughed bitterly. You called obsession intensity. You called stalking passion. You called delusion love. Lily, my mother started. No, I cut her off. You don't get to Lily me, not now. Do you know what the last 3 years have been like? Being told I'm bitter? Being told I'm jealous, being told I'm incapable of understanding real emotions because I pointed out that Madison's behavior was dangerous? Madison was still crying, but quieter now, broken. I love him, she whispered. I really love him. No, Derek said, and his voice was gentle but firm. You don't love me, Madison. You don't know me. You love the idea of me, the fantasy you created. But that's not real. It is real. She looked up, mascara running down her face. I know you. I know your favorite color is blue. I know you like your coffee black. I know you jog through Boston Common every morning. You know facts, Derek corrected. Facts you learned by following me, by invading my privacy. But you don't know me. You don't know that I'm terrified of disappointing my mother. You don't know that I cry at dog movies. You don't know that I have nightmares about the car accident that killed my best friend in college. He paused, his hand finding mine. But Lily knows, because she asked, because she listened, because we built something real, not based on fantasy or obsession, but on actual connection. That's not fair, Madison stood up abruptly. You're with her to punish me, to prove some point. I'm with her because I love her, Derek said simply, and I'm sorry that hurts you. But Madison, your feelings don't give you ownership of me. They never did. This was the crux of it. Madison had spent 3 years believing that the intensity of her feelings gave her rights. Rights to Derek's time, attention, life. But feelings, no matter how intense, don't create obligation in others. How long? My mother asked quietly. How long have you two been together? 2 months, I said. We met at a conference, had no idea about the Madison connection until our 3rd date. And you didn't tell us? Would you have believed me? I challenged. Or would you have said I was making it up, being dramatic, trying to herd Madison? My mother didn't answer. She didn't have to. We both knew the truth. I have something to show you, my father said suddenly. He went upstairs, came back with a folder. I found this last month, in Madison's room when I was looking for tax documents. He spread the contents on the coffee table. More photos of Derek, printed emails, a detailed schedule of his movements, and something that made my blood run cold, a floor plan of Derek's apartment building with notes about security, entry points, best times to visit. My God, my mother whispered. Madison, what were you planning? Nothing, Madison said desperately. I just wanted to be prepared in case Derek needed me, in case there was an emergency. This is a blueprint for breaking and entering, my father said, his voice shaking. Madison, you were planning to break into his apartment. No, I wanted to be ready, to help him, to what? I demanded. To surprise him? To prove your love? Madison, this is criminal behavior. I wasn't going to hurt him, she screamed. I would never hurt him. I love him. Love doesn't look like this, Derek said quietly. Love respects boundaries. Love accepts no. Love doesn't require restraining orders and floor plans and surveillance. The room fell silent, except for Madison's crying. Then my Uncle Tom spoke up. I think we all need to acknowledge something. He looked around at the family. We failed Madison. We saw warning signs and ignored them. We enabled behavior that should have been addressed years ago, and we dismissed Lily when she tried to tell us the truth. I'm so sorry, Lily, my Aunt Susan said, tears in her eyes. You were right about all of it, and we didn't listen. One by one, family members apologized. Not all of them. Some still looked uncomfortable, uncertain. But enough. Enough to make me feel, for the first time in 3 years, vindicated. I have something to show you, my father said firmly. He went upstairs, came back with a folder. I found this last month, in Madison's room when I was looking for tax documents. He spread the contents on the coffee table. More photos of Derek, printed emails, a detailed schedule of his movements, and something that made my blood run cold, a floor plan of Derek's apartment building with notes about security, entry points, best times to visit. My God, my mother whispered. Madison, what were you planning? Nothing, Madison said desperately. I just wanted to be prepared in case Derek needed me, in case there was an emergency. This is a blueprint for breaking and entering, my father said, his voice shaking. Madison, you were planning to break into his apartment. No, I wanted to be ready, to help him, to what? I demanded. To surprise him? To prove your love? Madison, this is criminal behavior. I wasn't going to hurt him, she screamed. I would never hurt him. I love him. Love doesn't look like this, Derek said quietly. Love respects boundaries. Love accepts no. Love doesn't require restraining orders and floor plans and surveillance. The room fell silent, except for Madison's crying. Then my Uncle Tom spoke up. I think we all need to acknowledge something. He looked around at the family. We failed Madison. We saw warning signs and ignored them. We enabled behavior that should have been addressed years ago, and we dismissed Lily when she tried to tell us the truth. I'm so sorry, Lily, my Aunt Susan said, tears in her eyes. You were right about all of it, and we didn't listen. One by one, family members apologized. Not all of them. Some still looked uncomfortable, uncertain. But enough. Enough to make me feel, for the first time in 3 years, vindicated. Madison needs professional help, my father said firmly. Real help. Inpatient treatment if necessary. This has gone too far. I don't need help, Madison protested. I need Derek. Once we're together, everything will be fine. We're never going to be together, Derek said, not cruelly, but with finality. Madison, I'm with Lily. I love Lily. And even if I wasn't, even if I was single, I wouldn't be with you. Not because you're not worthy of love, but because what you're offering isn't love. It's obsession, and I won't be part of that. Madison looked at him, really looked at him, and something seemed to break. You didn't love me. I never did. Derek said gently. I'm sorry. I know that hurts, but it's the truth. All this time, Madison whispered. All this time, I thought if I just waited, if I just proved how much I loved you. It doesn't work that way, I said softly. Love isn't about waiting someone out or proving yourself. It's about mutual choice. And Derek chose me. Not because I'm better than you, but because what we have is real. It's based on actual connection, not fantasy. I wanted to hate her. God, I wanted to hate her. But looking at Madison, broken and crying, I just felt sad. Sad for the years she'd wasted. Sad for the help she'd never gotten. Sad for the sister I'd lost to delusion. I think we should go, Derek said quietly to me. Let your family process this. Yeah, I stood up, suddenly exhausted. Yeah, let's go. My father walked us to the door. Lily, I'm sorry for everything. For not believing you, for enabling Madison, for making you feel like you were the problem. Thank you, I said. But Dad, sorry isn't enough. Madison needs real help. Not therapy she skips, not medication she doesn't take, real intensive treatment. And you and Mom need to stop making excuses for her. We will, he promised. I swear we will. In Derek's car, driving away from my parents' house, I finally let myself cry. Not sad tears, not angry tears, just release. You okay? Derek asked, his hand on my knee. I don't know, admitted. I got what I wanted. The truth is out. My family finally sees. But Derek, I just destroyed my sister, and I don't know how to feel about that. You didn't destroy her, Derek said firmly. Her obsession destroyed her. You just exposed it. And maybe, just maybe, that exposure will finally get her the help she needs. And us? I asked. Where do we go from here? Derek pulled over, turned to face me. We go forward, together. Lily, what happened today doesn't change how I feel about you. If anything, watching you stand up for truth, even when it was hard, even when it hurt, I love you more for it. I love you too, I said. And that's real, right? This is real. This is the realest thing I've ever had. He kissed me softly. Come on, let's go home. Home. Derek's apartment had become home. Benny waiting for us, coffee in the morning, quiet evenings, real, ordinary, beautiful life. Not a fantasy, not an obsession, just love. Real, mutual, chosen love. And that, I realized, was worth everything. 3 months after Thanksgiving, my life looked completely different. Madison was in treatment, real treatment, an inpatient facility in Western Massachusetts that specialized in obsessive disorders. My parents visited her weekly, and for the first time, they were hearing truth. Not excuses, not enabling, truth. She's angry at us, my mother told me over coffee at a Starbucks near her office in downtown Boston. We were rebuilding, slowly, carefully. She says we failed her by not getting her help sooner. She's right, I said, not unkindly. You did fail her, but you're trying to fix it now. That counts for something. I'm so sorry, Lily. My mother's eyes filled with tears. For 3 years, I dismissed you, made you feel like you were the problem. I was so focused on protecting Madison that I didn't see I was actually hurting her and you. I know, I squeezed her hand, and I'm trying to forgive. But Mom, it's going to take time. 3 years of being gaslit doesn't heal overnight. I understand. She wiped her eyes. How are things with Derek? Good, I smiled. And it was genuine, really good. We moved in together last month. That's wonderful. And she meant it. He seems like a good man, patient, kind. The way he handled everything at Thanksgiving, I'm grateful, Lily. Grateful you found someone who really sees you. The relationship with my father was easier. He'd always been more willing to see Madison's issues, just too passive to act. Now he was making up for lost time, researching obsessive disorders, attending family therapy sessions, actually listening when the doctors explained what Madison needed. She's making progress, he told me during one of our weekly lunches. Slow progress, but progress. She's starting to understand that what she felt wasn't love. It was something else, something that needs to be managed. Will she ever be okay? I asked. Define okay, he said thoughtfully. Will she be cured? Probably not. Obsessive tendencies don't just disappear. But can she learn to manage them? To recognize unhealthy patterns? To build real relationships instead of fantasies? Yes, with work, with time. And us? Will we ever have a normal sister relationship? I don't know, he admitted. That's up to both of you. But Lily, you don't owe her that. You don't owe her forgiveness or relationship or anything. You get to decide what you're comfortable with. I appreciated that. The acknowledgement that I had agency, that I wasn't required to sacrifice my peace for family harmony. Derek and I settled into a rhythm. Work during the week, lazy Sunday mornings with Benny, dinners with Emma and her girlfriend, normal, beautiful, ordinary life. Do you ever feel guilty? I asked him one night, curled up on our couch in our apartment in Cambridge, about Madison. Sometimes, he admitted, not for dating you, never for that. But I wonder if I could have handled the initial situation better, been clearer, more firm. You were clear, I said. You told her no, multiple times. You got a restraining order. Derek, you did everything right. Madison's obsession isn't your fault. I know, he kissed my forehead, but it's still sad. She wasted 3 years of her life on a fantasy. That's tragic. It was tragic, but it was also a choice. Madison had chosen delusion over reality, obsession over health, fantasy over actual connection. 4 months after Thanksgiving, Madison was released from inpatient treatment. She moved into a supervised living facility, continued intensive therapy, took medication regularly. She wasn't cured, but she was better. She called me. I almost didn't answer. Lily? Her voice was different, quieter, less certain. Can we talk? We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop in Harvard Square, public enough to feel safe. Madison looked different, thinner, older, but also clearer, like a fog had lifted. Thank you for meeting me, she said. I know you didn't have to. No, I agreed. I didn't. I'm sorry, she said, and tears filled her eyes. For everything, for the obsession, for dismissing your concerns, for making you feel like you were crazy when you were the only one seeing clearly. Thank you, I said. But Madison, I need you to understand something. I'm not ready to have a relationship with you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I understand, she nodded. My therapist said you might say that, and she said that's okay, that you're allowed to protect yourself. What happened? I asked. How did it get so bad? Madison was quiet for a long moment. I think I was lonely and scared, and Derek represented something safe, something I could control. If I could just make him love me, if I could just make the fantasy real, then everything would be okay. Obsession often isn't about the object. It's about what the object represents. Control, safety, purpose. Madison wasn't in love with Derek. She was in love with the idea of being in love, of having a purpose, of not being alone with herself. But fantasies aren't real, I said gently, and you can't force someone to love you. I know that now, she said. It's hard. Every day, I have to remind myself that what I felt wasn't love, that the relationship I thought we had never existed, that I need to build real connections, not fantasies. Are you? I asked. Building real connections? Trying, she smiled sadly. I have a friend in the program, Sarah. We talk about real things, our fears, our struggles. It's not romantic or dramatic, but it's real, and that's better. I'm glad, and I meant it. Madison, I don't hate you. I want you to get better, but I need you to understand that getting better doesn't mean we go back to how things were. We can't. Too much has happened. I know, she said, and I accept that. Lily, you were the only one brave enough to tell the truth, even when it cost you, even when it made you the villain, and I'm grateful, because if you hadn't, I don't know where I'd be now. We talked for another hour. Not about Derek, not about Thanksgiving, about small things. Her therapy, my job, neutral topics. Building something new from the ashes of what was destroyed. When we parted, she hugged me. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on the truth, even when no one believed you." Derek was waiting for me at home, Benny sprawled across his lap. "How was it?" he asked. "Hard," I said. "But good. She's different. Actually different. Not performing recovery, but actually recovering." "That's good." He pulled me close. "And you, how are you?" "I'm okay," I said. "Better than okay. I have you, I have Emma, I have a family that's finally seeing clearly. I have a life that's mine, not defined by Madison's drama, just mine." "Ours," Derek corrected. "Our life." "Ours," I agreed. 6 months later, Derek proposed. Nothing dramatic, just us, on a walk through Boston Common, where Madison used to follow him, but where we now made new memories. "I love you," he said, down on one knee. "Not because of some fantasy or destiny or cosmic connection, but because you're brave and honest and you make me laugh. Because you see me, really see me. Will you marry me?" "Yes," I said, laughing and crying. "Yes, absolutely yes." At our wedding, a year later, Madison wasn't there. She'd sent a card, a genuine, heartfelt card wishing us happiness. But she understood that her presence would be uncomfortable, that some boundaries needed to remain. My parents were there. My father walked me down the aisle. My mother cried, happy tears this time. Emma was my maid of honor. And Derek's rescue dog Benny was the ring bearer, because why not? It was small, intimate, real. Everything Madison's fantasy wedding could never have been. "I love you," Derek said in his vows. "Not because the universe destined us, but because I choose you, every day, in reality, not fantasy." "I love you," I said in mine, "because you saw me when I was invisible, because you believed me when no one else did, because what we have is real, messy and complicated and absolutely real." "Ours," Derek corrected. "Our life." "Ours," I agreed. 6 months later, Derek proposed. Nothing dramatic, just us, on a walk through Boston Common, where Madison used to follow him, but where we now made new memories. "I love you," he said, down on one knee, "not because of some fantasy or destiny or cosmic connection, but because you're brave and honest and you make me laugh. Because you see me, really see me. Will you marry me?" "Yes," I said, laughing and crying. "Yes, absolutely yes." At our wedding a year later, Madison wasn't there. She'd sent a card, a genuine, heartfelt card wishing us happiness. But she understood that her presence would be uncomfortable, that some boundaries needed to remain. My parents were there. My father walked me down the aisle. My mother cried, happy tears this time. Emma was my maid of honor. And Derek's rescue dog Benny was the ring bearer, because why not? It was small, intimate, real. Everything Madison's fantasy wedding could never have been. "I love you," Derek said in his vows, "not because the universe destined us, but because I choose you, every day, in reality, not fantasy." "I love you," I said in mine, "because you saw me when I was invisible, because you believed me when no one else did. Because what we have is real, messy and complicated and absolutely real. Obsession destroys, but truth heals. It might not heal quickly or easily or completely, but it heals. And sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable delusion, is standing firm in reality even when everyone calls you cruel for it." Years later, people would ask me if I regretted how things happened, if I wished I'd handled Thanksgiving differently, and my answer was always the same: no. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do is tell the truth, even when it's devastating, even when it destroys fantasies, even when it makes you the villain. Because the alternative, enabling delusion, allowing obsession to continue, sacrificing reality for the comfort of lies, that's not kindness, that's cruelty disguised as compassion. Madison got help because the truth came out. My family learned to see clearly because they couldn't ignore reality anymore. And I got to live my life, my real, genuine, chosen life without apologizing for it. That's not revenge. That's justice. And sometimes, justice looks like love. If you're enjoying this story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Share in the comments if you've ever had someone in your family with obsessive behavior. This story teaches us that obsession is not love. That intensity of feeling does not justify invasion of privacy or violation of boundaries. That families can be complicit in unhealthy behavior when they choose comfort over truth. But it also teaches us that exposure can be healing. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in delusions. That you are not cruel for setting boundaries, even when it hurts someone you love. If you have someone in your life with obsessive behavior, know this: you are not responsible for managing their obsession. You are not obligated to sacrifice your happiness to protect their feelings. And you are not the villain for choosing reality over fantasy. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Share in the comments, have you ever had to expose a difficult truth to protect someone? Remember, you deserve relationships based on reality, not obsession. And you, what do you value more? The comfort of family lies or the discomfort of necessary truth?